I slammed the truck door so hard the whole cab shook. Just stood there for a second, staring at the small one-story house I'd called home with Linda for 14 long, draining years. My jaw clenched. Part of me wanted to barge in, toss out a few more insults, put on the same dramatic exit I always did, but I paused. Then her voice came slicing through the air like always. "Get in here already," she snapped from the doorway. "Dinner's almost ready, and I'm not making extra if you're gonna sulk around like some damn stray dog." My pulse picked up. I felt a twitch in my cheek. I took a couple stiff steps toward the house, my brain itching to say something nasty. Something to remind her who pays for this roof. But instead, I just walked past her, didn't even look at her face. Said nothing. Just walked in. She followed, heels clicking behind me. "You're tracking mud all over the floor," she hissed. "Same fight every time, Jack. You know better." I threw her a sharp glare. "Don't start. It's been a rough day." "It's always a rough day for you," she snapped back, arms folded tight. "Then you bring that garbage attitude in here and act like I should be happy to see it. You want a warm welcome? Try giving me a reason." We just stood there, locked in another silent standoff. Her whole body seemed wound tight, like she was ready to crack. Her hair was pinned up badly, and the bleach job from last week already showed dark roots. Her eyes were full of that same tired contempt. I stood there in my sweat-stained work shirt, shoulders stiff, sneering back at her. She lifted her chin, daring me to blow up. I didn't. I turned and walked down the hall to the kitchen. Emily, our daughter, was already at the table. 13 and stuck in that teenage fog of apathy. She didn't even look up from her phone, just kind of glanced my way and rolled her eyes. "Dad's home," she muttered, all deadpan. "Time to play Happy Family, I guess." I glanced down at her screen. "Don't you have homework or something?" She shrugged without looking up. "I've got it handled. I'll do it later." Linda pulled out her chair and sat with a dramatic huff. "I'm not spending the whole night watching you two roll your eyes at each other. Sit down, Jack." I stood there for a second. "I've got a headache. I'm not hungry." She didn't even flinch. Always an excuse. She nodded toward the mess of a casserole on the table, some half-burned mix of pasta, and who knows what else. "Fine. Starve then. Emily, eat before it gets cold." Emily poked at her food, clearly unbothered. I narrowed my eyes at both of them, then turned and stomped back to the living room. Let them eat in that thick silence I left behind. I didn't give either of them a chance to throw more words at me, just grabbed my keys off the table. "You're leaving again?" Linda's voice rang out, soaked in mockery. "Why even come home if you're just gonna run off again?" I didn't look back. Need to clear my head. Then I walked out and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Out in the yard, I tugged at my collar, stared at my beat-up truck. It smelled like old fries and burnt coffee inside, but I almost climbed in anyway just to drive around aimlessly, avoid the yelling. Instead, I lit a cigarette and paced the porch. The dry grass beneath my boots crunched. I hadn't watered it all summer, and it showed. Footsteps behind me. Linda again. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed tight. "You want a divorce, Jack?" she asked, cold as ice. "'Cause if you're gonna keep throwing that threat around, you better mean it this time." I flicked ash off my cigarette and inhaled deep. Why would I want a divorce? My voice dripped with sarcasm. "We're the picture-perfect couple, aren't we?" "Don't play the victim," she spat. "You love stirring up crap." I stepped closer, let the smoke drift toward her. "That's funny, you make it real easy. I bust my ass at the car lot all day and I come home to your whining. That's not a marriage, that's a damn sentence." She didn't even blink. "Sentence? Look at this dump. I asked for a better house years ago, but you'd rather hoard every penny like it's gold. We could have upgraded, but no, your money is more sacred than our sanity." My face got hot. Truth was, I hated the house too. I bought it young, thinking I'd flip it for profit. It turned into a rotting symbol of every bad decision I ever made. "You want a better place?" I shot back. "Go earn the down payment. Don't expect me to pull cash out of thin air." She raised her voice. "I do earn money all those hours at the bookstore. But that's not enough for you, is it? You treat the used car lot like it's some $1 million empire, and you act like a goddamn CEO. I nearly lost it. My fists clenched tight. You don't know anything about what I do. I keep food on the table, don't I?" She shoved me, words hissing between her teeth. "You do the bare minimum and expect a parade. Newsflash, nobody's clapping." I slapped her hand away. "Don't touch me. You'll appreciate me when hell freezes over." "Fine," she snapped. "Then don't hold your breath waiting for it." We stood there again, deadlocked in silence. Just two people who used to love each other, now nothing but teeth and poison. I flicked what was left of my cigarette onto the ground and crushed it under my boot. "I'm done," I muttered, stepping off the porch. "For real this time. Good riddance." Linda snapped, spinning on her heel and slamming the door behind her. Usually we trade a few more venomous lines before I stormed off, but something about this fight hit different. Felt like a door closing for good, not just the wooden one she slammed in my face. I stood there for a second, breathing heavy, trying not to lose it. My gut twisted with rage, and for a split second I considered pounding on the door again, just to keep yelling, just to get the last word. But I didn't. I headed for the truck, climbed in, fired up the engine, and peeled off. 2 hours later I ended up in the back lot of some grimy dive bar. Neon sign flickering like it was on its last leg, buzzing like a damn fly. I stared at it for a while, like maybe it held some cosmic answer I was too drunk to understand. Inside, the place smelled like stale beer and bleach. A few guys were laughing in a corner booth, tossing around crude jokes. I dropped myself onto a worn-out bar stool and didn't even look up when the bartender came over. "Whiskey." "Neat," I grumbled. She didn't say a word, just poured and walked off. "Fine by me." I sipped the first one slow, trying to let it burn some of the anger out of me. Didn't work. The frustration kept rising in my chest like a bad fever. So I took the second drink faster. Then a third. Behind me, those same guys were still laughing. I caught something about Polish jokes, made my shoulders tense up. I'd heard them my whole damn life. Never cared enough to defend the bloodline, but it still scratched at me in a way I couldn't ignore. I listened for a second, figured they weren't talking about me. Hell, nobody here knew who I was. I pulled out my phone. Missed calls, Linda, Emily, and a number I didn't recognize. Probably spam. I checked the texts. Nothing from Linda that wasn't full of venom. The last one was from Emily, "Mom's freaking out. You're not coming home." I nearly hurled the phone across the room. My own kid guilt-tripping me like I was the villain in this mess. If she had any clue how toxic her mom really was. I shoved the phone aside and downed the rest of my whiskey. Time blurred after that. I must have sat there for hours, drinking, stewing, barely moving. At some point, I grunted a thanks to the bartender, tossed some cash on the counter, and stumbled out. The cold air hit me like a slap, helped clear my head a little. I ended up in a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind of place with buzzing lights and peeling wallpaper. Woke up the next morning with a mouth like sandpaper and a jackhammer pounding behind my eyes. My phone buzzed. I blinked through the cracked screen. Voicemail, Melissa from the lot. I called her back, my voice raw. "Yeah? Hey, Jack," she said, voice careful. "Just checking how many cars we're picking up at the next auction. Also, Rick came by. Wanted to look over the transmissions on the last batch, but I told him you weren't around. Everything okay?" I coughed, throat burning. "Yeah. Just some stuff at home. I'll be in soon. Don't worry about Rick, I'll deal with him." Rick. Used to be a buddy. Now he was more of a necessary evil. I paid him well to keep the cars running, but lately something about him rubbed me wrong. Too smug. Too nosy. I got the feeling he talked trash when I wasn't around, and I hadn't called him out yet, but the fire was building. "All right, boss," Melissa said gently. "You sound rough. You sure you're okay?" "I'm good," I lied. "Just the usual fight at home. I'll swing by and sort the auction list." After I hung up, I just sat there on the bed, rubbing my face. No plan for what came next. No idea if I'd ever walk through that front door again. And that thought? It didn't scare me. In fact, it gave me a strange sense of freedom. I rolled out of that dingy motel and headed straight to the lot. When I walked into the small office, Melissa looked up, concern all over her face. She was sharp, kept things moving even when I was a mess. "What's going on at home?" she asked. I gave her a half shrug. "Same story. Linda's furious, Emily's moody." Melissa sighed. "That kind of tension's not great for business, you know. If you're off your game." "My personal life doesn't touch these cars," I cut in. "Let's just handle what's in front of us." She nodded, though her eyes said she wasn't buying it. "We've got 10 cars landing tomorrow from the auction. Rick said he can do inspections by next week." I stepped up to the desk, flipping through invoices. "Good. Let him have them by Monday. I'll follow up." Then the door creaked open. In walked Rick. Tall, hands still stained with oil, and that same damn smirk he always wore like a badge. "Heard you and the missus went at it again," he said way too casually, like he was asking about the weather. "Everything good?" Rick asked, that smug grin of his spreading wider like it fed off my frustration. I hated that grin. "I don't pay you to gossip," I growled through clenched teeth. "Stick to the damn transmissions." He raised both hands like I was overreacting. "Relax, man. Just making conversation." I nearly said something nastier but swallowed it down. My jaw tightened, the muscles twitching. "That all?" Rick gave a lazy nod. "Yeah, I'm done here." Then he turned and sauntered off toward the garage like he hadn't just needled the last nerve I had left. I watched him go, my stomach churning with heat. Something about him, his tone, his timing, made me think he got a kick out of my personal life being in shambles. Melissa cleared her throat behind me. You sure you want to keep him around? He's getting a little too familiar. I rapped my knuckles on the counter, frustration pulsing through me. He's still the best damn mechanic in town. I can't fire him just for being a nosy prick. She nodded, but the look in her eyes said she wasn't convinced. And frankly, neither was I. That afternoon, I drove back to the house. My gut nodded the whole way, half expecting to find my clothes thrown across the dead lawn. But the place looked the same, dry grass, weeds poking through like nobody had bothered touching anything. I sat in the truck for a while, hands gripping the wheel, staring at the front door like it might open on its own. Eventually, I forced myself to go inside. Linda was on the couch, watching some god-awful reality show like nothing had happened. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. So, you're back, I said flatly, not even sure why I'd bothered. Just grabbing my stuff. Not planning to stay, I added. She didn't look at me. Don't care if you stay or go. Just stop stomping around like a toddler mid-tantrum. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. I'm the reason you can even pay the damn cable bill. She barked a laugh without taking her eyes off the screen. There it is. Good old Jack and his favorite weapon, money. Too bad you barely bring in enough to keep this place from collapsing. One bad month and we're on the street. Anger twisted inside me like a rusted blade. At least I've got a job. She snapped her head toward me. A job? You sell used junkers, Jack. That's not something to brag about. She let out a snort. Don't blame me if your daughter doesn't exactly tell her friends what you do for a living. I stiffened. Emily said that? She might have, she said casually. Kids talk. Guess you've done a great job showing her what not to respect. Linda finally looked at me, eyes sharp enough to cut. She's tired of your temper. We both are. I wanted to yell, to say something that would shut her down for good, but just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Emily walked in, earbuds in, phone glued to her hand, a permanent scowl on her face. Mom. Dad. Chill. She rolled her eyes. Seriously. Go to your room, I snapped. We're having a conversation. She stopped in the middle of the living room. About what? That I'm embarrassed to say my dad sells cars for a living. My jaw dropped. Excuse me. She sighed like she was the adult in the room. It's not my fault you two act like you hate each other. Room. Now, I said, pointing. She huffed, then turned and stomped down the hall, door slamming behind her. Linda stood up, stepping right into my space. Don't talk to her like she's some doormat. She's my daughter too. I glared back. Yeah? Well, I'm the one paying the mortgage. My name's on the deed, not yours. Don't forget that. Her voice trembled, but not from fear, from fury. You're twisted, Jack. Always throwing the house in my face like it makes you king of the damn castle. Newsflash, you left. That means your throne's empty. I grabbed her wrist, voice dropping into something darker. Careful. Keep pushing and you'll be the one out on the street. She ripped her arm free, eyes blazing. Lay one more finger on me and I'll call the cops. You'll spend the night behind bars, you piece of it. I'd like to see you try, I snarled, raising my hand halfway before catching myself. My pulse was screaming in my ears. But I didn't hit her. Instead, I stepped back and muttered through gritted teeth, you're not worth it. She shot me a look full of pure hate, rubbed her wrist where I'd grabbed her, and stormed off to the kitchen like a fuse already burning. I just stood there, breathing like a bull, fists clenched so tight they ached. Then something snapped, I spun on my heel, marched straight to the bedroom and started stuffing clothes into a duffel bag. I didn't think. I just moved. Shirts, jeans, socks, whatever I could grab. An hour later, I was gone. For weeks, I bounced between the motel and the house. Sometimes I even crashed in my truck when I couldn't deal with either. I refused to make anything official with Linda. No divorce. No final goodbye. It was like I was waiting for some perfect blowout, one more fight that would make walking away feel justified. Each time we spoke, things got uglier. I'd throw threats at her like darts, bark about the money, about how ungrateful she was. She'd fire back with those nasty little jabs about my business empire like she couldn't wait to see it crumble. Said I couldn't even keep the lights on without her reminding me when the bills were due. Deep down, I felt bad for Emily, stuck in the middle of two people who'd grown to hate each other's guts. But every time I looked at her, guilt twisted into something mean. I didn't talk, I snapped. Didn't comfort, just gave orders. She'd roll her eyes and disappear into her room, headphones in, door shut like a barricade. Eventually, she stopped trying to talk to me at all. Meanwhile, the lot needed me. A new shipment of cars rolled in and I buried myself in the work. Long hours. Endless paperwork. Anything to avoid thinking about home. But I kept an eye on Rick. Couldn't shake the feeling he was up to something. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it wasn't. He had this cocky way of walking around like he knew something I didn't. No proof, just a gut feeling. Melissa tried to keep things steady, telling me the place needed calm, but the air felt charged with something that wasn't going away. Then came the moment that cracked it open. It was hot as hell that day. I'd just come back from grabbing a greasy burger when I walked into the office and saw Rick leaning on the counter, chatting up Melissa like they were old pals. He had that cocky grin again, like he'd just said something clever. Melissa, on the other hand, looked annoyed, arms folded, eyes cold. I stepped in fast. "Rick, you need something?" He grinned wider. "What's it to you?" I slammed the burger wrapper onto the desk hard. "Melissa, everything good here?" She nodded stiffly. "Yes, boss." I shot Rick a glare. "Then get back to work. You're not here to chit-chat with my manager." He gave me a mock salute. "Yes, sir," he said with a smirk and wandered off like it was all a game to him. I watched him disappear toward the garage, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Melissa shook her head. "He's been asking a lot of questions," she muttered. "About you. About Linda. Says he's worried about your mental state." I cursed under my breath. "Rick's a snake. If he pokes around again, shut it down. I don't care how good he is with a wrench." She leaned in a little, lowered her voice. "Just so you know, I overheard him on the phone earlier. He was setting up coffee with someone and your wife's name came up." Her words sliced clean through me, like a knife straight through the ribs. "Linda?" I asked, barely managing to keep my voice steady. She winced. "I'm sorry. I didn't catch the whole thing, but I heard all right, Linda. I'll see you soon." I thought it was strange. Didn't know they were friends. My vision went red for half a second. "Thanks, Melissa. I'll deal with it." I stormed off to my office, slammed the door, and dropped into the old swivel chair, the thing groaning beneath me like even it knew things were about to break. Was it possible? Were they meeting behind my back? Laughing about me? Plotting something? I didn't know, but my pulse pounded with the kind of fury that doesn't fade. I needed answers. That night, I drove to the house. Still half mine, even if it didn't feel like it anymore. I knew Emily wouldn't be there, probably at a friend's or the library. Honestly, I didn't care. I just wanted to know if Rick and Linda were together. Right now. I crept onto the porch, the steps groaning beneath my boots. A lamp glowed inside, spilling soft light through the living room curtains. I edged closer, found a tiny gap. There she was, Linda, curled up on the couch in yoga pants and a tank top, flipping channels like she didn't have a damn thing on her mind. No sign of Rick. I almost turned away. Then headlights swept across the driveway. I ducked behind a bush, heart thudding in my ears. A beat-up old truck pulled in. Rick climbed out, nose in his phone, walking toward the house like he owned the place. Inside, Linda stood up, smoothed her hair. And before he could even knock, she opened the door. Let him in like it was the most natural thing in the world. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I stayed crouched in the dark, hidden behind dry leaves and dead shrubs, barely breathing. Through the window, I watched them talk, quiet, close. Her arms crossed. His hands moving like he was explaining something. Maybe apologizing. Then they both sat on the couch. Rick scooted closer. Linda didn't pull away when Rick scooted in closer. Instead, she rubbed her temples like she was trying to press the headache out of her skull. Her face twisted in frustration, then she let out a heavy sigh. Rick nodded, calm as ever. And then she reached out and touched his arm. Just for a second. He put his hand on her back, rubbed it gently. And she didn't stop him. I felt like I was gonna be sick. My gut twisted. My skin burned. I stood there frozen, watching them like I wasn't even real. Just a ghost outside my own life. All I could picture was the two of them laughing behind my back, bonding over how pathetic I was. Like they'd built some secret alliance just to screw me over. Then Rick said something I couldn't hear, and Linda rolled her eyes hard. She stood up, arms folded tight across her chest, and stormed out of the room like she was griping about something. Rick followed right behind her. Straight into the hallway. Toward the bedroom. My fists started shaking. My whole body trembled with rage. Were they? No. No, I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want it to be true. I nearly lost it right then and there. Part of me wanted to smash through the window, drag Rick out by his throat, tear the whole house apart. But something stopped me. Some strange, bitter instinct told me to pull back. To wait. So I retreated to the truck, hands white-knuckling the wheel as I sat there seething. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. And by the time I peeled away from the curb, my mind was a storm of violent thoughts, and every illusion I had left about Linda was gone. She didn't respect me. She didn't fear me. She didn't care. She used me. And now she had Rick, the mechanic, whispering in her ear and rubbing her back like he owned the place. If I stormed in and called it what it was, she'd just laugh. Or worse, threaten the cops. No. I needed something better. I needed a plan. It was clear now Rick wasn't just changing oil. He'd become Linda's confidant. Hell, maybe even her backup plan. For the next few days, I stayed away from her. And from Emily too. I just drove, worked, drank, and plotted. I didn't answer texts. I didn't want to hear their voices. All I did was stew, thinking of ways to protect what was mine. If Linda thought she could cozy up to Rick and push me out of my own life, she had another thing coming. Back at the lot, I demanded updates from Rick like nothing happened. The hypocrisy wasn't lost on me. I wasn't about to let the guy slack off, not while he was sleeping with my wife. He'd get every last transmission fixed if I had to stand there breathing down his neck. My temper was a hair-trigger. When Melissa told me there was an issue with a title transfer, I exploded. When a customer asked for a discount, I almost cussed them out on the spot. Word spread fast, Jack was on a warpath and folks started giving me space. Even Rick got the message. He stopped joking, kept things quiet. And every time I walked up, he hung up his phone like I'd caught him mid-scheme. Melissa pulled me aside. "He's acting jumpy," she said. "Real nervous lately. I think you got him rattled." One afternoon, after closing a brutal sale, I found Rick alone by the garage. Grease hung heavy in the air, and a pile of dirty rags sat near the workbench. I walked right up to him. "Rick," I said, voice clipped sharp. "We need to talk. And don't lie." His eyes narrowed. "About what?" "You know what. You were at my house the other night." He blinked, just a second too long. "She asked me to come by. Said her car was acting up. It was private." I stepped closer, nearly chest to chest. "Private, huh? You go sneaking around behind my back to see my wife and you're calling it private? You trying to screw with me? Sabotage my marriage?" He threw his arms up with an exaggerated shrug. "You walked out, Jack. You left her. She can see whoever the hell she wants." That one cut deep. "Oh, that's what she told you? That I walked out? So now she's just free to let any lowlife wander in off the street." Rick's face twisted. "Hey, calm down. You're the one who can't keep your house in order. Or your business. That did it." I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him toward me. My voice came out like a growl. "Don't you dare talk about my family or my business. You got that?" He glared at me, jaw tight. "Let go of me." But I didn't. My grip just tightened. His fists clenched like he was ready to swing. If Melissa hadn't burst in just then, shouting, "Stop it," I don't know what would have happened. She grabbed my arm and pulled hard. I let go, breathing like I'd just run a mile. Rick stumbled back a step, chest rising and falling, then shoved me aside and headed for the exit. Next time, he snapped, "Keep your damn hands to yourself." At the door, he turned. "You're not my boss. I'm an independent contractor." "Then quit." I roared after him. But he didn't. He smirked. "You need me. But if this is how it's gonna be, I'll survive. Just don't expect me to care about your drama." And then he walked. Melissa stared at me wide-eyed. "You can't keep doing this," she said. "You're gonna scare off anyone decent." I let out a cold laugh. "He's not decent. He's a damn traitor. Let him run off to Linda if he wants. I'll find someone else." She shook her head. "Your temper's gonna destroy everything." "I'll cool off. Find someone new," I said, but my voice cracked a little. "Just don't expect me to pay top dollar." She nodded and disappeared, probably already Googling replacement mechanics who aren't sleeping with the boss's wife. That night, I was back in that dumpy motel. Half-empty bottle of whiskey beside me. A strange mix of rage and satisfaction boiling in my gut. I'd stood up to Rick. I'd made it clear I wasn't someone to mess with. But all I could picture was Linda hearing the story, probably laughing. Probably patting Rick on the chest like he was her hero. Maybe even dragging him into bed to celebrate. That thought, that image, it burned. I drank. A lot. Replayed every version of revenge I could dream up. 3 nights later, I was dozing off when my phone rang. It was Emily. She sounded frantic. "Dad," she said in a rush, "Mom's losing it. She's throwing stuff around. Screaming about the mortgage. Says you're trying to kick us out. Rick's here too. They're both calling you a scumbag." I'm scared. My stomach dropped. I looked at the clock, almost midnight. "Why are you calling me? You should be asleep." She sniffled. But I woke up when they started yelling. "Mom's flipping out 'cause she can't find some paper about the house. She's saying you're trying to foreclose the house or something, I don't even know." Emily's voice cracked through the phone. She sounded scared, like a kid in the middle of a war zone. I took a long breath and sat up on the edge of the bed. "I'm coming over," I said, voice rough with sleep and anger. "Don't open the door to Rick or your mom. I don't care what they say. Just lock yourself in and wait for me. It felt wrong telling my own daughter to hide in her house like a hostage, but I knew what Linda was capable of when she got worked up. And if Rick was there, egging her on, things could get ugly fast. I threw on my coat, grabbed my keys, and stormed out the door. The drive felt endless. I was gripping the steering wheel like it had insulted me personally. The street was dark when I finally pulled up, but the house glowed from every window like it was daring me to come closer. I killed the engine, climbed out, and marched straight to the front door. I still had my key. Inside, the smell of cheap wine and rage slapped me in the face. The living room was a mess. Linda was by the coffee table, face blotchy, hair wild, half crying and half screaming with a nearly empty wine bottle gripped tight in her hand. Rick stood nearby, pacing like some nervous guard dog. As soon as they saw me, Linda pointed the bottle like it was a weapon. "You bastard," she yelled. "You just sneak in here like you own the damn place?" I glared at her. "I do own it. Now put the bottle down before you hurt somebody." Rick stepped forward, chest puffed, eyes burning. "Don't bark orders at her. You left. You walked away from your family." I laughed, sharp and cold. "Family? That's not what I'd call a wife cozying up to my mechanic." Linda's face contorted. "How do you say that, you paranoid freak? And even if I did, you're the one who abandoned us." My voice rose. "Maybe I'll do more than just abandon you. Maybe I'll throw you both out. Remember whose name is on the deed." That set her off. She lunged, swinging the bottle in a wild arc. "You disgusting pig. Try and kick us out. Just see what happens." I caught her wrist mid-swing, gripping just tight enough to stop her. The bottle slipped from her hand and splashed wine across the carpet. Rick rushed in, shoved me hard in the chest. "Back off," he barked. I stumbled but didn't let go of Linda until she let out a yelp. Then I dropped her arm and stepped back. She staggered away, panting. Rick squared up, fists clenched like he was begging for a reason. I didn't give it to him. Instead, I shouted over his shoulder. "Emily, where are you?" She peeked out from the hallway, eyes wide and watery. "I'm here," she whispered. "Please stop fighting. Please." Linda wrenched herself free and pointed at me again. "Get the hell out. You can't just show up and act like you're the king of the castle." I laughed bitterly. "I can and I will, until I change the locks or sell the damn thing." Rick stepped between us again, fists still flexing. "Don't talk to her like that." I barked a laugh. "Real brave, Rick. Playing white knight in a house I bought and paid for." Before he could shoot back, Emily came forward, voice trembling. "I'm so sick of this. Mom. Dad. Just stop. You hate each other. So end it already." Linda glared at her. "Don't talk like that. He's the one ruining everything." I looked between them, mother and daughter. The mess I helped make. My face twisted. "You're both worthless," I hissed. "Should have left years ago. You're a damn parasite, Linda." "And Emily? She's becoming just like you." Her lip trembled. "Dad, shut up." I snapped. I regretted it the second it came out, but it was already too late. Rick lunged, throwing a punch. I dodged and slammed my elbow into his ribs. He staggered back, winded. Linda screamed. Emily screamed louder. I didn't stick around for the fallout. Instead, I turned to the coffee table, shoved aside a pile of junk mail, and rifled through the stack until I found it, a bank statement. Mortgage nearly paid off. "Perfect," I muttered. "Now I can sell this place and cut you out completely." Linda practically spat at me. "You wouldn't dare. This is my home." I looked her dead in the eye. "You wanted a better house, right? Guess now you'll have to go find one. I'm done paying for the circus." I turned to leave, but she wasn't done. She grabbed my jacket, spun me around with surprising strength. Her face was inches from mine, eyes blazing. "You can't keep threatening me," she hissed. "You're a monster, Jack. But you're not invincible." I stared down at her, voice ice cold. "Watch me." Then I yanked free, walked out the door, and slammed it behind me so hard the frame shook. Over the next few weeks, I put my plan into motion. I contacted a lawyer. Someone a buddy of mine had recommended. And we started the process: paperwork, asset separation, house listing. I didn't waste time. I wanted my name clean and her name off everything. No more delays. This time I was going to finish what I started. Meanwhile, I stayed out of town as much as I could, driving to auctions, shaking hands with new dealers, building connections like a man on a mission. And truth is, I felt untouchable. Vengeance kept the engine running. While Linda and Rick were probably scrambling to keep the lights on, I was quietly moving the chess pieces. I didn't give a damn where Emily ended up. Not anymore. Melissa told me she'd heard Rick had lost a couple of side gigs, something about his attitude rubbing people the wrong way. Figures. And Linda? She was stuck relying on her dusty little bookstore paycheck, drowning in bills. That thought gave me a certain satisfaction. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and saw a man who'd finally taken control. Sure, my personal life was still smoldering, but I was winning the war. I handed off the daily operations at the lot to Melissa, sold the entire business to a shell company I built myself. That way Linda couldn't touch a dime. Ethical? Maybe not. But everything stayed under my control, just hidden under new labels. Melissa even handled the name change. As far as the staff was concerned, new management had taken over. I still popped in once in a while, playing the role of consultant. Behind the scenes, I pulled every string. Linda would never be able to prove a thing. Then came the final blow. I had my lawyer send her a formal notice. The house was up for sale, and she had 1 month to pack up and get out. The day she got the letter, she called me full rage mode. I let it ring to voicemail. Her screeching was mostly gibberish, but the message was loud and clear. "You vile bastard. You're leaving me and Emily with nothing." I smirked and deleted it without a second thought. 3 days later, just as the sun dipped low, I came back to my apartment. 1 bedroom. Cheap furniture. But it was mine. No Linda. No Emily. No mess. I slid the key into the lock and froze. Soft footsteps behind me. I spun around, fists clenched. Linda stood in the hallway, a hair mess, face flushed, wearing a black coat like she'd come straight from a breakdown. Her eyes were wild, glassy. The light above us cast hard shadows across her face. "How did you find me?" I snapped. "I never gave you my address." She stepped forward. "I'm not stupid." I asked around. "Rick gave me just enough." "Why are you here?" I barked. "To yell? To guilt trip me? I'm done with your games. Get lost." She tried to push past me, but I planted my arm across the doorway. "You're not coming in." "I need money, Jack," she said, voice trembling. I laughed short and cruel. "Then call Rick. He's your man now." She shoved my chest. "He's broke, you bastard. This is your fault. You sold the business. You left us with nothing. I need to find a place for Emily and me." I slapped her arm aside. "You didn't seem too concerned about Emily when Rick was all cozy in my house." Her face twisted. "Stop flipping everything. You're obsessed with control. All you ever do is wave money in people's faces." I stepped forward, forcing her back into the hall. "If that's what you believe, that's your problem, not mine." She gritted her teeth. "Give me some cash or I swear I'll..." "You'll what?" I leaned in. "Cry? Call the cops? You've got nothing. The house is mine. You're on your own. I'm not giving you a damn cent." That's when she lost it. She burst into furious tears and swung at me, open hand, wild and sloppy. I caught her wrist, shoved her back. She stumbled into the wall, nearly fell. Her eyes filled with hate. She charged again. I pushed harder this time, a clean, firm shove that sent her stumbling down to the floor. "Stay down." I barked, voice raw. "I'm not here to wrestle with you. And I'm not your goddamn ATM." She panted, shaking, her anger turning into something feral. She looked like she might try a third time. But something in my eyes must have stopped her. Finally, she sagged against the wall. Shoulders shaking, tears streaking her face. "You'll regret this," she spat, voice quivering with rage. I sneered. "No, I won't. Now get the hell out." She stood slowly. For a second, I thought she was gonna swing again. But then she turned, stumbling down the hallway, footsteps echoing through the stairwell. I watched until she disappeared. Then I stepped back inside and slammed the door. Hard. My heart was pounding. Blood still boiling. But I felt unstoppable. Let her scream. Let her threaten. Let her cry to whoever she wanted. I was done. There was no going back.